Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your host, Bob Gibbons, founder of Riata Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm. Bob will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Bob Gibbons, and I'm excited today. We have Jennifer Pierson and Jason Vitorino with us as our guests. And have you ever worked with a company and always wondered, should I leave and do my own thing? Maybe you're a consultant, maybe you're providing some services, but you got lots of questions. Can I take my clients with me? Am I going to be able to fund this? Is anybody going to come with me? Other people that are going to work with me, are they going to do that? Are they going to see me as, competition? Do I have a non-compete? There's all kinds of questions that come up when you're thinking about leaving your company and going and starting your own thing. Well, Jason and Jennifer have both gone down that road. First, separately, they each started their own companies, and then they later merged their two companies into one. So we're going to be talking about all those kinds of things, and their company is called Strive, and I'm sure there's a story behind that, so we'll talk about that as well. So welcome to the show, Jason and Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here.
So let's start with the name. What in the world is Strive all about?
Well, the first thing was Jason and I, when we left our respective larger firms, we named our companies, our individual companies before we created Strive, with our names. So mine was Pierson Retail Advisors and his was the Vitorino Group. And when we started talking, we decided we wanted a company that had longevity way beyond us. So we knew we wanted to drop our names. And then it was Jason's idea to create a competition at the company and let them really name it. So we went through a whole process of names, logos, colors, and everybody in the company did that. And then we voted, and Strive was the winner.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is it just Strive, or is it Strive Realty something?
It's just Strive.
Just Strive.
Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't stand for anything.
No.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Well, there's a quote that goes with it. I might get it wrong, Jason, by Albert Einstein.
And it's strive to be of value. No, I'm going to get it wrong.
Oh, shoot. It's the pressure of radio.
No worries. It's just your company.
Right.
With all of your clients listening.
Right. Give me a minute. I'll bring it up when it comes to
all right.
me.
When you think of it, we'll talk about it again. Okay. So let's talk about that a little further. So your companies both had the company, your personal name in the name of the company.
Right.
And you see that a lot.
Right.
And sometimes that transcends the individual. Even the individual sell it, and it'll still have sort of a life beyond themselves. But did you think it wasn't going to grow to that point where you could do that, or you just kind of decided it just kind of felt better?
We wanted it to be more about everybody else at the company. We wanted them to have ownership of the company, and the way that we share in the profits of the company underscores that as well. We wanted it to very much be about them and have longevity way beyond us. So, and we also wanted people to feel like it was their company, and it's hard to feel like it's their company when it has our names.
Yeah. Okay, I get you. I like that a lot, because you're right. If you got other partners, other profit sharing, whatever, that definitely is a different animal, and especially if you have all these people out selling for you. I can see why they might maybe feel a little more excited about selling if an individual's name is not on the door, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's very different from most commercial firms. It's by the owners of the company. It's really their name or an acronym of their name, and again, somebody who was an entrepreneur that was with the company that I was prior to, started their own company. I was talking to him when I was planning on starting my own company, and he's like, the issue with the old company that we came from, it's all about the individuals that their name are on the door. And I never had that perspective until I really thought about it. And for Jennifer and I, it was something, again, bigger than us, and it wasn't just about us. It was about everybody that belonged to the firm. So we created Strive through the contest, and I know the Albert Einstein quote now. It's strive not to be a success, but rather to be of value. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is to be of value to our clients.
Very nice. I do like that a lot. So let's take a little step back. So how did you guys first of all, tell us what Strive does for our listeners who may not know what you guys do.
Right now, Strive is just investment sales, and we sell retail commercial properties, single-tenant and multi-tenant shopping centers in Texas and the surrounding states.
Okay.
Ultimately, Strive is going to be much bigger than that, and will be a full service brokerage company.
Okay. So big plans for the future, but for now, you're mainly focused on selling leased properties, retail leased properties to investors.
Correct.
Okay. And so is that where the space you guys have both been in your whole careers?
Yes. This is what we've done. I've been doing it for 15 years, and Jennifer for 20 plus.
So Jennifer, how did you get into the business?
I went to Arizona State after growing up here in Dallas because when I went to visit some friends for spring break, it looked really fun.
So that was not the middle of summer,
yeah.
I'm guessing.
And then, it was not the middle of summer. And I found out that they had an accredited business school, which was a selling point to my dad, and said, I want to go to school here. And then while I was there, I had a good friend who had an HP 12C who was in the real estate department at Arizona State. And he said, dude, look what I can do with this calculator. I can calculate how much a house payment is. And he went through the functions on a 12C, and he was like, you so need to transfer into the real estate school. And I was like, good idea. And so I did.
And what was your major up to that point?
Undecided.
Okay.
Yeah. So I majored in real estate finance, graduated with real estate finance, moved back, and then started in commercial real estate. There was not a whole lot more thought process than that, but a little bit. I knew because I am a female, it was really important to me that I not be in a corporate structure, because it was important that my success be determined by me and not someone deciding to give me a promotion or, an increased title. I knew that if I could prove to other people that I could do it, that I could go way further than anyone expected me to.
Interesting.
And I knew that intuitively at a really young age, and I'm not sure why.
So nobody told you that? You didn't see this through other family members that were being sort of held back because they were female?
My parents were both strong people, and they both worked hard, so I'm sure it came from them somehow. But I don't know exactly how that idea formulated in my mind, but it was super clear. I was really uncomfortable with any kind of a salary and any kind of someone else determining how far I go.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because my daughter works for a giant international company now, and she's 25, and she's doing really well, but she kind of has that concern about, how, especially, and it's a foreign company, and I'm not making a statement about any individual foreign,
Right.
whatever. Anyway, but certain cultures don't have the same view of the gender equality like we do in our country, or that we're coming to in our country, I should say. I'm not saying we're there yet, but anyway. So yeah, I can see that being a big issue, and so we, when our kids were growing up, we always would teach them, whenever they had jobs or whatever they did, don't charge what, by the hour. Charge what people are willing to pay to not have to do it themselves, or based on the value that you're bringing to them.
Right.
Regardless of gender, regardless of anything else, what's the value you're creating, and what's the appropriate charge for that?
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that's kind of where you went. So that's cool. So what was your first job then in real estate after you graduated?
My first real job was with a large publicly traded company. I did a few odds and ends little things before then, like answering phones at a real estate company, or just whatever I could do to get into the door. And then I got on with a big one. I got hired by a big one.
And was that on the one that somebody owned a bunch of property, or was it more of a service company?
Total service company, the
Okay.
largest one in the world.
Okay,
actually.
one with 4 letters.
Yeah, that
four,
one.
4 dirty, all dirty words have 4 letters, right? That's one of them. No, I'm kidding.
It's actually one of the best real estate companies in the business, I think,
It really
still
is.
today. I was there for 21 years, and I have a lot of appreciation and gratitude for what I learned and how
we
far
can
my
and we
career
can
went.
say it. It's CBRE. I
Yeah.
mean, they're a well-known company. I have a lot of friends that work there, do a lot of business with them. So
Yeah.
very, very good company. So Jason, how about yourself? How'd you end up in the real estate business?
My path into real estate was quite different. So I grew up in Boston, and I went to school at the University of Maine, and I wanted to be a doctor. And so I was going to do all my pre-med classes and went to orientation, and I also went to college for athletic purposes. So I played hockey at the University of Maine.
Smile.
I still have my teeth.
They're all there.
Yeah.
Are those the originals?
Original. So we wear face masks in college. So
Okay.
that's the difference.
And they were NCAA champions.
Oh,
They were good. Yeah.
Wow.
And he was the captain.
nice.
So went to the University of Maine, went to orientation. I met this girl there that happened to be dating a hockey player, and she said, chemistry, organic chem, bio, English, and calculus, you're not going to survive. Hockey here is a full-time job. It's the real thing, and
Okay.
you shouldn't be taking all of these classes for a semester.
So she wasn't commenting on your intellect.
She didn't know me. She just met me at orientation and
Strictly
said,
a time issue.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I decided to, ease back on that. They didn't have a pre-medicine avenue to go into. So I ended up getting into business, playing hockey. We won the national title my senior year. And then rather than continue to play hockey, I went back and did a post-bac certificate in pre-medicine. So that was the goal. I was going to do that. Then I met a girl in Newport, Rhode Island. She happened to be living in New York. I was living in Boston. We did the long distance thing and tried to get a job in New York. Couldn't do it. She tried to get a job in Boston. Didn't work out. And she happened to be from Dallas. And we came to visit her family in January. It was like 74 degrees. And I was like, I can definitely do this. I could definitely come here. So I had a year.
Let's pick up the rest of that story after the first break. Danny's going to freak out if we don't stop this right now. Okay, Jason. So before the break, you're chasing a girl around the country and trying to decide where you're going to land. So
Came to Dallas, and I had a year off between when I took the MCAT, applied, and went to medical school. So her family happened to push me into real estate because they thought, I don't want my daughter to be broke for the next 10 years of her life if this guy goes into medicine. And so I got into real estate, realized real quick in 3 or 4 months that I didn't love medicine for medicine, and realized that I could make a lot of money in this industry. So just stuck with it. She moved back to New York. I stayed here and stayed with the company that I was for about 12 years. And then after 12 years, I ventured off and started my own firm.
So what were you doing in that first company?
Same thing, investment sales, selling retail properties, single-tenant properties, and multi-tenant shopping centers.
Okay. Interesting. So so that girl moves back to New York, which means she's not in the picture anymore?
Exactly. So now I'm happily married to a Texan, have 3 beautiful kids, and life happens for a reason. So it was supposed to happen, and it just happened that way.
Well, and I noticed you didn't totally leave the Boston Italian heritage behind, because I noticed in your bio, you're the first guy I've ever seen that gave me the names of all 3 kids, but also their first and middle names, which all have a very Italian name, either first or second middle name, right?
Yeah, I'm very proud of where I come from. So my dad's actually an immigrant from Brazil. And so, and there's a ton of Italian influence in Brazil and Portuguese, obviously. So we named all our kids a Brazilian middle name as a tribute to my dad's side of the family.
So I was born in Brazil.
Wow.
I know, just isn't that nuts? But my parents lived down there for 5 years, and we're doing medical work down there. And so anyway, I don't remember it. We came back when I was a baby. Can't speak Portuguese. Can't read my own birth certificate. It's pathetic. What can I tell you? Okay, so you guys both went to work in commercial real estate. You were very successful in your respective companies, and I know Jennifer, in your case, you had some like national responsibilities within CBRE.
I did.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
I made a market of selling property that was, for the most part, below $30 million in value, and we called that at CB the private capital group. And there came a point in time where the guy who was leading the group wanted to step out and go on his own, and he recommended that I run the group. That was a management position. And I learned a lot, but that was leaning in the direction that intuitively it never felt right in my gut, because that's a salaried position. So they allowed me to keep my team and keep my own book of selling retail properties. So I was really a player coach. And then after about 3 years, I pulled out of that and went back to just straight brokerage.
Was that just because you didn't like management as well, or it was just not really feasible to do both and you just had to make a choice?
Doing both is challenging for sure. And my personality is I want to give what I'm doing everything I have. So, yeah, you probably can't do both and be great at both. But it was more the salary and the overhead and someone else determining how far I go.
So you were ending up in the position that you always said you didn't want to be in.
And it was really uncomfortable for me. It was really uncomfortable to my success be determined by someone else's opinion.
Yeah.
I didn't like how that felt at all.
Interesting. Well, so many salespeople, really good salespeople, have been ruined by being put into management. Because just because you're a great salesperson doesn't mean you're a good sales manager, right?
Right.
And it's not the Peter principle necessarily, but it's just a different skill. I mean,
it is.
One of my previous companies, we had people doing both the leasing, which is inherently a sales position, and the property management, which was an operations position. But we had both, one person doing both functions. And honestly, I never understood why, and I didn't like it. And eventually we changed it and had those separated, and everybody had to go one way or the other. And as soon as we split that, every single person said, "Thank God, I hated doing X." Either they hated the sales and loved the management, or the other way around.
Yeah.
And it was like we just made a whole lot of people really happy because they were no longer in conflict every day in their jobs.
Yeah.
The ironic thing about this is we're now in the management
right.
part of the business again.
I was going to get there.
The same thing.
So now we're managing people, and so it's very interesting. But to elaborate on what Jennifer said, it's we're building a platform, a company, but we happen to have management aspects. So the one thing that she didn't like about it is it was dictated by somebody else in a salary position. Now it's not a salary position, but what we have to do to ultimately achieve our goals of building the company.
So what kind of infrastructure do you put into place now in your company so that even though you guys are the top rung of the management ladder, how do you manage that so that you don't feel like you're in that same position that you were in before?
That's a layup for a plug for someone we need to hire.
Oh, wow. So this is a conversation you apparently already have had.
We're deep in it. Yeah, we need to bring on a president of brokerage. We're actively looking to do that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that would then free you guys from having to do the management, the personnel, the whatever, and free you up to continue to do what you love?
Well, I think not all of it. Our goal is actually to get the brokers within Strive so good and so proficient at doing retail investment sales, because that's what we have right now. So I'm just talking about that specific sector, that we are handing off all of the business to them, and we're pulling out and only, looking from a 500 or 1,000-foot view and directing the company. We actually both like management and are good at management. We both have a high level of empathy. We connect with people well. So I think what Jason was alluding to, it's different when it's your own company. It's very different.
Oh, yeah.
And right now we're the managing partners, the CEO, the secretary, the coffee guy, the little bit of everything. So as we continue to grow, we really don't want to add layers. And that's not what we think is. We're just one flat company, an organization, and we just need to empower people and leverage everybody's abilities in order to achieve what we're looking to achieve. So I think Jennifer is better at managing people than I am. And I think that's the struggle that I have personally is lack of time and patience, right? You want everything yesterday, but you need to do everything, but do you have time to invest in people, which are now our assets, right? So so it's a balance of the two that I really have to continue to work on and to figure out. But we know that ultimately it's people. I don't know if I can say this on the radio, but we have a no asshole policy. So we
have a beep button.
So I think we're unlike most traditional brokerage companies where if the guy's a producer, everybody just leaves him alone regardless of his character or morals or ethics, where we fired the person that was like that because it didn't fit into our culture and our brand. So when Jennifer mentioned legacy, we're trying to build a great company, a great culture, have great people, and I think that's ultimately the most important thing to us.
Yeah. So whenever you had been at a company for, what'd you say, 22 or 23 years at CBRE?
21 years, yeah.
21, and you'd been at your other company for, 12? So, that's a long time to be in one company. And what was it that made you suddenly decide, or suddenly is probably not the right term, but what made you decide that it was time to go do your own thing?
So I think that Jason might be better than I am at getting an idea and executing, like really trusting his gut and going fast. I always knew I wanted to start my own company, but it took having lunch with a client who said, "What are you waiting for? Why in the world are you still at the same company if you've always wanted to do this?" So it was really that lunch. And I was like, what am I waiting for? He was like, "You're kind of an idiot. What are you doing?" So then I really started putting the wheels in motion to do it, and it took me about 9 months to figure it all out and take the leap.
What about you, Jason?
It took a lot of wine, cigars, and talking to my wife late at night, and it didn't happen on a whim. But
you had to get her drunk before she would say yes?
The one thing is I have really supportive people. So my wife is very supportive. My parents are very supportive. That was never the difficulty. The difficulty was actually doing it, right? So any change is uncomfortable. And so leaving something cushy and easy was difficult, right? So you're risking everything. And so, I was bored. I was making a lot of money, doing a lot of transactions, but I wasn't happy. And it was mundane. It was boring to go in there. It wasn't lighting my fire. So this was just a natural progression of me as a business person and to take the next step.
Okay, so in brokerage, everybody's an independent contractor in most cases. And so you're kind of building your own book, running your own business within the context of the bigger company, of course, and there's a lot of resources that bigger company has. So when you go out on your own, you're still kind of doing the same thing, but now you have to be the one providing all those resources. Is that oversimplifying it, or why couldn't you continue to do what you were doing? I mean, you're selling the same kind of product, same kind of properties. So what's so fundamentally different about doing it under your own name versus somebody else's?
I looked at the benefits of what I was getting in terms of benefits and what I was giving, and it was unequal.
Okay.
And so, you look at where the source of the business is coming from and where the source of the buyers are coming from, and 85% of that was coming from my own team. It wasn't coming from somebody giving us a referral. It wasn't coming from another broker within the company bringing a buyer to the table. So if you're giving up a majority of your fee or half your fee and only getting 15% of the benefit, the cost of these services that, big companies say that we're going to provide this and provide that, it's not that expensive in the big things when you're giving millions and millions of dollars to a company.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take one other break and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts. When you negotiate for that renewal option, why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. Okay, we are back, and I forgot to ask you guys, what is your website address? I failed to write that down.
StriveRE.com. STRIVERE.com.
Okay, StriveRE.com. Well, good. Well, all right. So I really liked what you were saying before the break, Jason, about the difference being that it's not an equal relationship. And, I'd been on my own for 9 years, and I always had the question, what is the big company doing or the regional company doing for their clients that I'm not doing for my clients? And that really gnawed at me for a long time. So I went and joined a company. And that was kind of hard to do because I'd been in the real estate business 20 years, been a landlord guy, asset manager, all the rest, then switched sides to be a tenant rep only. And for 9 years, I'm on my own doing that. And then I go join somebody else. And I knew all the people at the company. I really liked them, did a lot of business with them. And so it was not about them, but it was about the inequity. I felt like I was giving so much of my income, all of which I personally generated, none of which came from them. And they weren't really providing me anything of value in return for that high cost. And so I, after a few months or 11 months, said goodbye and went back to doing business under my own name. And I'm glad I did. And I also answered the question, what are they providing their clients that I'm not providing? The answer was nothing. I mean, the bigger companies provided a prettier package, but that was about all I could find that really made a difference. And that may be oversimplifying it. But so I agree that it has to be an equitable exchange. So how do you, as now the owner of the company, make sure that your brokers that work for you, the agents in your shop, aren't feeling the same thing?
So we've taken our past experience, and when I left my company, I worked for Marcus & Millichap, which is a very entrepreneurial type place. But there's a stigmatism that it's a Shark Tank and cutthroat environment. And I always thought that the CBRE institutional world was great in that aspect, but it lacked the entrepreneurial spirit of a smaller company like Marcus & Millichap. So I thought there was a niche in between the two that you could overlayer a real entrepreneurial spirit, but also an institutional-minded company and combine them together. It's just by happenstance that I happened to merge with Jennifer, who is the leader of the CBRE here in Dallas and for the national platform. So we're trying to create a company that's really different from the old school way of doing business, of cutthroat, eat what you kill, hoard information, don't share it, and we're doing the opposite. We believe in everything's collaborative, everything's sharing, and it's all of the benefit to the client. If I don't put the best team on the field at one time, or I don't collaborate with other people and their expertise, we're doing a disservice to our clients. So we have one central database. Everybody works on it. Everybody sees everybody's notes in there. Everybody works together. Everybody gets paid on every single transaction. So there's
everybody gets paid on every transaction.
Yeah, that's really different.
Whoa.
Yeah.
We got to stop on that one.
Yeah.
What does that mean? How do you do that?
That means every time we close a transaction, we pay everybody in the firm.
So does that mean that everybody has a fixed commission split, or how do you decide? I would think that the person, like I went to CoStar and I looked at you guys up and I saw you had a ton of listings in the DFW area. And of course, your names were on some of them. Other people's names were on others. There were usually at least 2 names on every one. So I got to believe that whoever brought that business in gets a bigger cut, whoever closes it, et cetera. No?
It's not how it works. So we basically have everybody shares in the pot, and based on everybody's age and what they did the prior year and seniority and expertise, they get a percentage of the pool. And so every deal that comes in, everybody gets paid on a percentage that was pre-arranged, and it resets. And we're actually resetting it twice a year until we get stabilized and have a firm that's, everybody's kind of on a level playing field.
So compensation is such a difficult thing for every industry. Real estate's no different. And you're right. In real estate, it's always eat what you kill. And so how do you slice and dice that pie to make everybody happy and feel like they've been compensated fairly for their efforts is important. But I've never seen a model that really does that perfectly. And so it sounds like you guys are tweaking this thing as you go. And, you said twice a year. So can you tell me more about what that model looks like?
Sure. And right now we have two pools because we have a single tenant team and a multi-tenant team. And so on every time a single tenant property closes, there's 6 or 8 agents that get paid, and the staff gets paid on every single deal as well. So we provide marketing people, we provide financial analyst, transaction coordinator, and each of them also get paid on every single transaction as a bonus at the end of the year. So we're really incentivized to everybody work together to share the information, to share leads, to share buyers, to share everything, because it really doesn't make a difference who closes the transaction because everybody's going to get paid on it.
So you might as well use those resources that are available.
100%.
Yeah. If you're paying them, man, use them. I certainly would. And it's interesting because at this other company I went to work with, I was told that I had administrative support. And one day I went to the person who I was told was my administrative support and asked for something to be done. And the response was, "What are you talking about?" She'd never been told that she was supposed to be doing anything to support me.
Oh, wow.
And so I actually ended up calling my old assistant from when I was on my own and said, "Hey, would you be my virtual assistant?" And so I paid for that separately on my own, which was insanity, right?
Right.
That company was not doing anything to, really support and keep me.
But that's how every company works. CBRE, you have to pay for the support. My company, you got to pay for your own support. We're very different. We, as Strive, the company pays those people a salary, and we bonus them based on production. And so, Jennifer and I are the largest producers in the firm now, but ultimately, and so we're contributing a majority of that. But we just want to make sure everybody gets paid and everybody's rowing in the same direction of getting our clients the service the clients needs and closing transactions.
Interesting. So Jennifer, whenever you're recruiting new people to come to the firm, is this a major bonus and benefit? Do they love this, or is it something that actually keeps you from being able to hire some people because they just don't get that model?
Well, we've just finished our first year of doing it. And in fact, you asked, how do we decide who gets what split? They decide. So it's like nothing I've ever seen. And if you have hired the right people, if we have brought in the right people who fit the culture that Jason described, it's magical, truly. Everybody sits around the room and they look at each other in the eye and they say, "I think I should get this. I think you should get that. That seems fair." We just did it. It was pretty unbelievable. And the majority of the people were like, "I don't want to overreach. I want this to be fair. I want this to be right and equitable." So if we can clearly, back to your first question, articulate how it works inside the firm, which is really hard to do, people get super excited about coming to work for us. So we're very careful. It has to be a right fit. You interview with 6 or 7 people before you come on. It's a really, really important move when we bring somebody in because of the way we're structured.
Yeah, but I got to believe if you have those two teams that you were talking about, Jason, the multi-tenant team and the single-tenant team, and there's 6 or 8 people on that team and you bring somebody new, boy, that just changes everything. And especially if it's somebody new who doesn't bring a book of business with them.
Right.
Then all of a sudden that's diluting everybody else's income. Now, of course, there's got to be a good reason why you're bringing that person on because you feel like they're really going to contribute.
Yeah.
But initially that could be a dangerous thing.
Yeah, and it's harder when someone has more experience because then you're really risking a cultural fit. So you have to be really careful with who we bring in.
So do you prefer bringing in inexperienced people or
Not
experienced?
necessarily. We'll consider both, but it just has to be right.
Interesting. Well, and you also talked about how in the future your plans are to become a full-service firm, not
Right.
just a retail investment firm. So as you do that, then that's just going to complicate things further. But at the same time, I assume, just like you have the two teams now, you'll just have more teams. And so the people that are negotiating and deciding what they get paid are doing that within those teams, not firm-wide. Is that right?
Correct, team-wise, but then we also have a profit sharing. So end of the year, everybody's, not contributes, but gets paid a percentage of the profits. And so our goal is to build a company that people want to stay, that people can work hard and reap the rewards and benefits of their production and working with other people. I've seen at other companies, it's a revolving door.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a culture that we're trying to create. We're trying to curate a culture that everybody fits, everybody works hard, everybody respects everybody else, and it becomes self-policing when there's a percentage in there. Everybody looks everybody in the eye and says, "Am I doing enough for the next guy?"
So do you practice the total open book management, where everybody sees everything on the finances
Our number one value is transparency.
at all levels? So
Correct.
the first person. So if I come to work for you, day one, I can say, "Show me all the books," and there they are.
We'll be happy. I don't think we have any problem
Wow.
sharing things.
We've had other people on the show that have done that, and in fact, one guy not only shared everything within the company, but they would videotape all of their meetings, and they would put it on YouTube. So now their customers could watch as well. And they didn't have the finances on that, but everything else they did, which was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, there's a well-known investment guy, money market guy named Ray Dalio,
Mm-hmm.
who has written a great book about his company, Rainwater, and has done, I think, is that right, Rainwater?
I'm not sure.
And has done that and has really, really pure transparency. And I think I've heard Jason say probably 500 times, life is transparent. Life should be transparent. So it's definitely a theme through the company, through Strive.
Interesting. Well, it's all going to be transparent at some point, and you might as well just do it from the beginning, right, and make it a part of the culture. So I like that. I can't say that I've ever been a part of a company that's done that, but I like the idea. We're going to take our last break. We'll be right back. We're back. We're talking to Jennifer and Jason of Strive. You can find them on the web at strivere.com, and they are a investment sales company selling retail property. So let's go back to when you guys were talking about going out on your own. That created an incredible amount of stress. I know you talked about the people you talked to, that kind of thing, but then you also then at some point decided to merge together as well. So now you've gone from being on your own to now you have a partner. So that creates stress as well. So how did you prepare yourself for those big events? Just emotionally or whatever?
My story is pretty unique. So I wasn't prepared. I mean, I prepared financially, and I think just life in general, I was prepared mentally to overcome obstacles and difficulties. And I knew that there were going to be some, but I think I hit every one of them when I left. I mean, when I left my company, I was sued. So not only was I not making money, I was spending a lot of money, but I also had a group with me that I was paying them, even though they weren't getting paid on transactions when we left and paid. So there was a lot of anxiety. There was plenty of sleepless nights. And it was just really, believing in myself, believing in what I was doing, and continue to just wake up every day and continue to put one foot in front of the other to do this. But, the most amazing thing is all my clients, or a majority of the clients, 99.9% of them, invested as me as an individual rather than a specific company. So I realized it wasn't the company, but it was really me
Yeah.
that they were working with.
And I think that's a really good point to highlight, because in the last company I worked with, where I was on the landlord side, I was an asset manager. So I had office buildings all around the country I was responsible for, and the company had even more. At the peak, we had like 80 office buildings that we owned. And whenever we would sell a building, we would list it with Gary Carr at CBRE, or, pick your name. There's a lot of people that specialize in that. And so we would list it with those people. And even though we were a real estate company and we technically could have done it on our own, we wanted to use the brokerage community, because we realized that the more we used them, the more they would be bringing us opportunities the other way around as well. So that was a good thing. But whenever we hired somebody, our agreement with Gary Carr was, we're hiring Gary Carr. We're not hiring CBRE. If Gary Carr left and went to any other company in the middle of that listing period, that listing went with him. It did not stay with the company. The name on his business card was not nearly as important to us as him, because he was the one that had the contacts, the relationships, all that kind of thing. So it's exactly what you were saying.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anything you want to add to the stress, how do you guys get together, and why did you decide that the two of you needed to merge your own companies?
That was a client telling us as well.
Wow.
He said to me and to Jason independently, you two could dominate the Southwest if you merged. You guys could really be something special. And so we started having lunch and talking about it. And that was probably one of the easiest decisions that I've made in my career, and certainly a great one.
Had you guys had very much interaction with each other previously?
None.
None.
Yeah.
So you
So
didn't
we
really
were-
have anything, and then this client, wow.
Yeah.
We were so-called competitors, but I don't think there was really that much overlap. I have the abundance theory where there's plenty of opportunities for everybody, especially here in Dallas-Fort Worth. And so Jennifer had her share of the market. I had my share of the market. There's other people out there. And for me, I'm always been a team sport guy. I was never a golfer. I was never a tennis player. I was always team sports. And I think you can achieve more with other people than you can individually. And so I always had that in mind. And now that I've merged with Jennifer, I think I have half or less of the responsibilities, so I sleep peacefully at night.
So how long were you guys on your own individually before you merged?
I was about a little over a year and a couple months, and I think Jennifer was close to 2 years.
Yeah, I was like 6 months ahead of him.
And how long have you been merged now?
Since February of 17.
Okay, so,
So
2 years,
almost 2 years.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And how big is your firm now in terms of people?
25 people.
Yeah, approximately 25
Okay.
people.
So that's a pretty good sized shop. I mean, for a regional, dominating the Southwest. So why do you want to screw this up and go into other aspects of the business? You say you want to be full service. I mean, you got a great thing going. What's the benefit?
Well, we always we have like cornerstones to what we wanted to create that started from our very initial conversations, and one of those was client-centric. We knew that if we focused everything around the client and we worked hard, we would be successful. And the client needs more than just investment sales. They need retail leasing. They need debt and equity finance. They need appraisal in some cases. That there's a whole realm of services that you can provide to one client where you become much more valuable to them. So we've always had an eye towards doing that. And going into other product types is also on our radar because we see clients going back and forth. Some own multifamily and retail, some own office and retail. So it's all very much around what the client needs.
And whenever you do that and go into those other aspects, does that create any kind of conflicts of interest?
I think we always have to be aware of conflicts of interest. When I was at CBRE, we were so large that they were just hitting us from every direction.
Yeah, they have conflicts everywhere.
Yeah, but I think they did a very good job, and we plan to do a really good job of A, hiring the right people, and B, being transparent. And to the extent that you do those two things, you can stay in pretty smooth waters.
Mm-hmm. Seems like the whole conflict of interest thing is getting more and more significant. I know in other California, for example, there was a big lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court, and it was on a residential issue, but still the Supreme Court basically spanked the brokerage for not handling the conflicts properly. I know in England their equivalent of the Real Estate Association has put in some limitations, recommendations on how to avoid conflicts of interest, and I'm curious to see where that goes, if anywhere, in the U.S. On a bigger scale. I mean, some people have predicted that at some point the big companies like CBRE, Cushman & Wakefield, JLL are going to have to physically separate themselves. I cannot imagine that in my lifetime, but I don't know. I would be interested to see if that is necessary or not.
I don't know those cases, but I know from my own experience of being in commercial real estate for as long as I have, if you're transparent and you communicate, you're fine. And if a client's not comfortable, once you show that transparency, they'll tell you, and then you don't do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty easy. Jason also says life is black and white. There is no gray. And it's true. I mean, it's really clear. You're right or you're wrong. You're fudging or you're not. You're going behind somebody's back or you're not. Mm-hmm. You just ride the right road, and it's not that difficult.
Well, I think you're right. Disclosure clears up everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in conflicts of interest, we want to be a brokerage company. We don't want to be a brokerage company that develops and a brokerage company that buys and a brokerage company that does, and what everybody seems to be getting into. I think that's in the lines of potential conflict of interest. But, for us, somebody needs leasing and we're in sales and also property management and debt and equity. I think that's more synergistic than a conflict of interest.
I would agree with that. Where I see the bigger conflicts is when you have a company that owns the building and they also lease it, they also manage it, they also have the brokers bringing the tenants to the building, and they also have the investment brokers selling the building, and they have people refinancing the building, and it's just like, oh my goodness, how can you do all of that and not be doing something that's going to hurt one of the others? And hurt is probably not the right word, but it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And so it's always curious to see how they do that. Because when I was an asset manager, for example, I had people that were pitching me to lease my buildings, and they would specifically say, and we're going to put a tenant rep on this project with you on the team because they know everything coming down the road. They know all the tenants that are coming down the road. So we're going to give you sort of an advanced look at those tenants. And I was thinking, how is that good for that tenant? And it didn't make sense. And, and these were giant companies that were doing this. I just didn't understand how that made sense.
Yeah. It's crazy how in life, the older I get, I realize it all goes back to very simple fundamentals. Very simple. When you're at a crossroads, do you do the right thing or do you do the wrong thing? So when Jason and I first met, it was really important that I, A, understand how he thinks and how he makes decisions when he's backed up against the wall. And B, this sounds like a small thing, but I watched how he treated his wife. I watched who he was as a human being. I watched how he was with his kids.
Yeah.
And that was a huge factor in deciding to partner with somebody because we're with each other all day.
Yeah.
It's a big decision.
I like the fact that you do so many interviews. It's kind of like Dave Ramsey talks about how many interviews they do, and the last interview is with the spouse, and he gives an example. One time he was interviewing somebody, and they went to dinner, and the spouse came, and the spouse turned out to be crazy, and was yelling and screaming, and
Oof.
it was really strange. And he says, that's the whole reason, and we're trying to find people like you by doing this, because this person was saying, why should you be doing this? Why do I have to come do this interview? And he's like, so that we can find people like you and avoid that from the beginning. Well, Jason, Jennifer, really appreciate you guys being on the show. It's been a fun show for me, particularly because you're in a similar industry. For listeners, please go to strivere.com. If you're a president potential for their company, give them a call. We'll be back next week with another show, another guest, and you can find us at The Next Level Show, whether you're on the web, on podcast, or YouTube. Just look for The Next Level Show.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much.